Ben Riggs presents D&D Out Loud. Episode 93. What is the purpose of horror?
Welcome once again, assembled internet hordes, to D&D Out Loud with Ben Riggs. I am Ben Riggs, apparently controversial D&D historian and author of Slaying the Dragon, A Secret History of Dungeons & Dragons. And over the past 13 years of writing and podcasting, I have met hundreds of creative geniuses in and around the world of tabletop role-playing games. Here on this show, I ask two of these flaming torches of the human imagination to come on and have a fascinating discussion, which I then record and send out into the world. And today we are making history here on D&D Out Loud, because for the first time in the ancient and storied history of this podcast YouTube channel, we have a Diana Jones winner on the podcast with us. First time ever. If you are unaware, the Diana Jones Award may be the most prestigious award in our humble hobby. It is selected by a council of Illuminati and given out every year at Gen Con in Indianapolis, more prosaically, the night before Gen Con in Indianapolis. And I will say that I was present when you won, but you were not.
Yes, that's right. That's a fun story in itself. And I should say, technically, the Diana Jones Award winner is sitting behind you on your shelf right now. It's for the game. But I will take all the glory, and I will continue to do so.
And the other thing, if we're starting on Diana Jones, actually, we need to say that Alex was the last Diana Jones winner. Because
technically.
As I remember, after she won the award, it just kind of mysteriously disappeared.
Yes, it did. It got sucked into the black hole of Canadian postal system, and so the award itself lives on, but the mysterious sort of pyramid of lucite that Jason Morningstar's cat barfed on famously to me many years ago. Yes, has sort of disappeared into the depths of wherever it's in a warehouse somewhere maybe.
I mean. I'm trying to think of a cliche to disperse here, and I'm failing, but it's got to show up sometime. It's too weird. Like a lucite pyramid with a fragment of a role-playing game in it. Someone's going to be like, what is this? And put it on eBay at some point, I
can't wait for the resurfacing. It's going to be like holding open the door at a retired folks home or something.
So I'm planning to buy it because it might be the only chance I get to get the Diana Jones Award.
Then you can give it up, and there'll be like rival awards, like medieval popes.
Oh, yeah.
Which Diana Jones Award do you recognize as legit?
So for Alex Roberts, thank you for being here, designer of Starcrossed, and for the Queen. Also with us is a mysterious man of Cthulhuoid intents. He is the author of Stealing Cthulhu, CTHULHU Dark, more adventures for Trail of Cthulhu than I can think of off the top of my head. Graham Walmsley, how are you today?
Hi, I'm good. I'm good.
So, we're here because Graham has a Kickstarter, and I asked him, who would you like to talk to? And he said, Alex Roberts.
Yeah.
So would you like to plug your Kickstarter first, or tell me why you chose Alex to talk to?
I mean, I chose Alex because she owes me money, and and she has been avoiding my calls, and I just thought when you said, who do you want to talk to? Well, I was like, this could be my only chance. So,
it's true. Little do you know, I still have the distance. I could end this call at any time, but I will leave a series of clues. If you listen carefully, you'll know where the money is hidden. Yeah.
We should have done that. We should have actually kind of arranged like so little clues.
Well, now the people can think that we can.
Then I will ask the marketing question, which is, Graham, tell us about your Kickstarter.
Okay. So I'm doing a second edition of Play Unsafe. So Play Unsafe was the book I wrote, 20 years ago, which is crazy. When I first started like being around game design websites, and it's a game about improvisation and storytelling. So, this was the time when I was sort of on the Forge and story games and these these indie game websites. Yeah, and it was the first book I wrote, and I've always been really fond of it. And a friend James Graham asked me to said I should reprint it, and then I started reading back through it, and I was like, oh, I actually kind of want to change this bit, and I want to change this bit. And then I had a new edition, and so now I've got a new edition of it. So yeah, that's what it is.
Very cool. So when I never considered the two of you as a pairing, but after Graham brought it up, I was very excited because you both have done some really radical work in game design. I guess since I just asked Graham a question, I'll ask Alex and then Graham, and then hopefully conversation will bloom. But so Alex, if someone doesn't know Starcrossed, could you tell them about it?
Sure. Yeah, it's a 2-player role-playing game of forbidden love about two people who really, really, really want together, but to get together, but have some kind of compelling reason why they should not act on their feelings. And what you do is you create two characters who have reasons to be into each other and reasons to be pulled apart, and you set up a Jenga tower between you and the other player. You build it up, and then as the relationship between the two characters grows, as they become closer, more intimate, you are pulling bricks off of the tower and putting them on top. And when the tower falls, they act on their feelings. And so how tall the tower has gotten by that point kind of influences the outcome for them, like how dramatic or intense or it is. And it's fun and sexy and it's a good time. And obviously I feel like it's so obvious I don't even have to say it, but I should always say it. Very much inspired by Epidiah Rapophal's Dread, which is a horror game that uses a Jenga tower, and whenever you do something risky, you pull a brick, and if it falls, your character's removed from the game. And so structurally and procedurally very different, but yeah, shout out Epi for that that tower, the sweet tower inspiration I crave.
And go ahead, sir. Go, Graham. Go.
No, I was going to say, because it really reminded me, like, one of the first indie games I remember was Emily Care Boss's Breaking the Ice. And firstly, I love it when people write romance games, because like I haven't dared. And so I loved it when you wrote that, and I love the way you talk openly about how it's a sexy game, and I think that's an amazing thing. Emily's game was, if you don't know Breaking the Ice, it's really good, and it's this it's another 2-player game, and you roll dice. You get this like shared statistic between you, which is attraction, and it's such an innovative and brilliant game. Yeah, so Starcrossed reminded me of that. Absolutely. Breaking the Ice was a huge influence on me, and I would say it's probably the first romance game that I encountered, probably the first one that I played, and I think when Emily made that game, like there were so few kind of explicitly, people have been using D&D to run their romance stories for as long as it's existed, probably, but there are very, very few to none games that were so explicitly in that genre. I shouldn't say none, there definitely were, but very few. And I know the sort of like pushback that Emily, she told me about talking to people who were like, well, why would I want to play a game about that? Or like, well, why would you or wouldn't that be weird or whatever? And I feel like today, like it's just its own genre. Like there's just tons of them. You go on itch.io or DriveThruRPG or whatever. There's piles and piles of them. So Emily was a very, very important trailblazer for me. And I could spend a whole hour talking about Breaking the Ice. But let's do it. Let's just do it, because there's a couple of things that are in this game that, because like mechanically it's quite opaque. Starcrossed is like it uses a tower. Everyone's like, okay. Breaking the Ice is like it's about two people getting together, but there are a couple of mechanical things. Like one, your character has to have something in common with you and something in common with the other player that you don't have in common with them, and vice versa. Right. And so it is a really nice getting to know you exercise. Like it genuinely is a great date game, because you are kind of to start the game. You have to have that conversation. Yeah. Exactly. And throughout, as you're saying, Kate, like I think I played it with someone who was a parent. And so my character was a parent, and I've never had kids. I didn't know anything about it. And so not only do you just like learn this basic fact, I guess, but I did know that, but like as you're going through and telling the story, something's happening, and I'm like, oh, and then I guess, I don't know, what would I do in this situation? And the other person was like, when they're that age, you just do this and this.
or, well, when I was first divorced and I was dating, it was like this. So there's like something really built in to get you kind of like understanding each other through your play, and that is like, it's just buried in there, right? Like it's not on the
Amazing,
cover, and
isn't
it's so good.
And isn't that innovative, right? Because because there were a lot of games around at the time, but like the two really innovative things with Breaking the Ice for me are, one, it's explicitly bringing player characteristics into it, where often we keep those incredibly separate, but also it has this shared stat, and I love that. So so you get a lot of role-playing games where you have your stat and you roll your stat. Breaking the Ice has attraction, which is between the two of you, and you both want to roll to increase it. That kind of blew my mind. I love that.
Could I read the Wikipedia summary of this game really quick?
Sure.
Because I think you mentioned all this, but just again, I have a wide variety of audience members. So Breaking the Ice is an indie role-playing game by Emily Care Boss. It's a game for 2 players where the player characters go on 3 dates together to see if they will become a couple, which does sound really fun. I'm going to try playing with my wife sometime.
It's a great idea. And notice how there is this, like, there is the tension of the uncertainty of the outcome, but you two are like both as players on board with what you want to happen, right? Like you're both playing off of each other, but you're also like shipping, right? Like we want to have an interesting outcome for these characters. And I think that, and I haven't played in a long time and I should check, but I think it's very important that like there isn't like a win or lose condition. It's more like, is this an interesting story that concludes in 3 dates, or is this a story that we want to imply keeps going? Because
that's
like,
interesting. Sorry, you go. Yeah.
Because it's important, and like and I don't think I really pulled that off as well with Starcrossed, because I think people are really like, either they get together and we've won, or they don't and we lose, which I'm like, a tragic ending isn't a loss. That's my favorite. Who doesn't love a tragic ending? But turns out romance fans. And what Emily and I think have in common in that impulse to create is that neither of them are really based on the romance genre. Like they do not follow the structure of a romance story or novel or like it is based on observations of human interaction. And this is something that I also like about your games, Graham, is that even when you're taking a genre like, okay, this like Cthulhu stuff or cosmic horror, I think you're much more interested, from what I can see, in like in human beings and in human behavior. And I think that you're more interested in emulating that, while also being like, oh, also this will have the structure of a cosmic horror story, or this will have the structure of space horror or whatever.
That's really funny, because I don't think of that as my game at all. But I think of myself as as sort of emulating the genre. So for cosmic horror, I think the first thing I do is sort of go into the narrative and kind of go, what are the beats here? So this is cosmic horror, and this is what I see. I see this kind of escalation and all of that. But you're right, there is something. Like, I think the important thing about horror is, I often describe it like a sort of turning the heat up under a pan, that actually it's not about the horror, it's about the relationships between the characters, and now let's put them in an extreme situation and see what happens. And so there is something about the human I really like.
Yes, and you're so right. And I think like because I got to write a little scenario for Cosmic Dark, and what was interesting to me is that like you can set up this structure. Okay, this is what like a horror narrative is like, and you have a very specific like, yeah, here's the act structure. But to try to think of something that is just going to be scary to the people who are playing it, like ultimately like a spooky alien that's scary to the players is not, or sorry, scary to the characters of the story. Like, yeah, of course they would be scared, but like, are you actually going to be impacted by that personally? And as where if you start getting into body horror, everybody has a body. Everybody's terrified of, what if my bones cracked, or what if plants were growing underneath my skin, or what if, in my example, what if I was in a cave? I did a lot of research on caves and caving to do this scenario, and I really concluded I don't ever want to go in a cave again. And I think they should just seal them up. No more caves for anybody.
You were really influential on me, especially in body horror. And I mean, you told me at one point that you found it quite empowering, and I don't go on.
No, I mean, go off. I'm curious what you, because I remember us having this conversation. I'm curious what you remember from it.
Yeah. Well, also, I don't know how personal to get, because it was
because it's about the time I broke my skeleton in half. Yeah. So I don't know, content warning.
I mean, I'd love to hear about it, but it's up to you.
No, so the reason why I was not at the Deanna Jones Award ceremony that year is because I was in a life-changing car accident and broke both of my femurs at the same time, which is not recommended. And so, yeah, it was, it's one of those axial events, right? Like, it's just one of those things that, like, there's life before and there's life after. And so, yes, I remember talking to you, Graham, and talking about how like horror in general is like kind of dodgy for me. I don't always like it. And body horror had never had the slightest appeal for me. But after something that horrific truly happens to your real body in real life, maybe, I had this not sudden fascination, but like sudden appreciation for it, for like, oh yeah, that is also a part of human life. That is also part of, and I'm thinking about this conversation specifically because we were talking about our game of Cosmic Dark that we had played. But yeah, I'm curious what stuck with you or what you remember from that conversation, because we talked for like an hour or two.
I think it came at a time when I was wondering what the point of horror was. And one of the things you said, I can't remember the exact word you used, was that it could be empowering or something like that. And I hadn't even thought of that, and go on.
Yeah. We have to be careful, Ben. You have to keep me under control, because otherwise Graham will just be like, go on, and I'll talk for 3 hours.
I mean, so with a voice like that, how can you say no?
Well, yeah, but then listen to Graham's soft, gentle, understated British accent. Wouldn't you rather listen?
This is also my GM voice that I use when I'm trying to get
oh
people
no,
into
this
trouble,
is my
so,
GM voice.
But no, people are here for the digressions. I suppose
That's
at some
true.
point it would be good to tell people what Cthulhu Dark and Cosmic Dark are. So maybe Alex,
that. Let's just no, it's fine.
If you could tell us what that is, and then
they're horror games, Cosmic Dark.
They're horror. They're scary, scary,
spooky. Scary. Okay, job done. Let's carry on.
Well, it's because, Cthulhu Dark, I feel like if you have ever played a role-playing game before, you know that for some reason one of our primary genres is in the medium is like Lovecraftian stuff or cosmic horror. Graham, you please tell us. You create right now the Wikipedia articles for plot summaries for Cthulhu Dark and Cosmic Dark, because I would like to hear how you describe them.
Well, Cthulhu Dark is my rules light cosmic horror game. I think the thing I'm proud of it is that it is rules light. It has very it's 2 pages of rules if you distill it right down, but they do something. Like I think sometimes people think of rules light games and think, oh, let's get the rules out of the way and let's make them really tiny and just have a couple of skill rolls. But no, the rules for Cthulhu Dark really push you, and they interact as well, because I think that's an important thing about game mechanics, right? That it's not just about having a game mechanic. It's you have these game mechanics and they kind of bounce off each other in interesting ways. And so I think Cthulhu Dark does that quite nicely. And then Cosmic Dark is sort of a sequel to it, and it's whereas Cthulhu Dark is essentially Lovecraftian, I think. I'm just going to touch my microphone up a bit. Cosmic Dark is very much surreal space horror inspired by J.G. Ballard and Jeff Vandermeer, writers like that.
Mm-hmm. It's I feel like I was more on board. Oops, sorry, I hope that didn't make a lot of noise. I feel like I was more on board to play Cosmic Dark because I do like space horror. I am into Alien and things like that, and I do feel like Cosmic Dark is doing the things that Event Horizon should have done or was trying to do, and then was like, actually, it's just the hell ship. Sorry, spoilers, I guess. Actually, it's the most foolish thing you could do with that premise. I feel like, the thing that I wanted from that movie was actually what Cosmic Dark is doing, which is to position space as not just like a physical place that is quite threatening, but as like that reminds or solidifies like you're always in space. You are always in the great vacuum. You are always this big. You just really, really get to notice it because you're in space. Like this idea of like frontier, or like edge of consciousness, or edge of like, I don't know, humanity or human reality. Yeah. And so I was willing to play Cosmic Dark because Graham was running it and we had been playing some really great games, and he's a good GM. And because I was like, okay, I do like space horror. I can maybe get into this. And then we played, and we played this scenario where there's like living rock, like rock is growing and then it's like growing in your body. And to kind of get back to this idea of empowerment that you mentioned, like this is why, because when you talk to people about like your skeleton being busted, it's very awkward and weird. And I'm never quite sure like how much to tell people or how much information they want, or like how that's going to affect people. Like it's very, it's like it's a delicate thing. And then people obviously don't know what to ask me about because they're like, they don't want to upset me, I guess. Even though like, you know, I could show you my day one x-rays and be like, look how this went over there and whatever. But so there was just something really beautiful about coming to this game and being like, yeah, guess what? Rock is growing in my throat and I'm going to bash it with a hammer because I want to breathe, and I'm going to accidentally break my bones by doing so. And like, by getting to be like, this is also a part of life. Like this is, you really can feel this bad. Your body can really be this different from what you think it is. And in fact, your body exists healthily in such a narrow field of conditions. And if you're well and you've always been well and haven't had anything really horrifying happening, you really don't want to think about that probably. As where I think people who are like chronically ill or have had like people who've had cancer, people who have like you connect with them and they have this really like, okay, but it is like that though. Like life includes that. It is also something that happens. And it's nice to take it like out of, to not just leave it in the shadows and be like, we don't talk about that. Yeah.
Alex, when you wrote, I'm really interested about when you wrote the scenario, because I mean, you know, we're sort of indie gamers, and we don't write scenarios, right? We write games, and it's you know, obviously it's bad and wrong if you write any kind of module for people to play with, and you've betrayed indie gaming.
Yeah.
So how did you? Yeah, because I mean that's prep, right? That's like the GM railroading you if you write a scenario, and that's obviously awful. Yeah. How did you find that? Because I actually really like doing a bit of prep and writing scenarios, but how did you find it?
So I think I like writing them more than I like running them, probably, because I've written a couple of either hacks or like play sets. Like this is the thing about indie games, is that whether or not you have like an adventure that you run, there's often like a setup, right? Or here's a fictional world that you could set your game in, or here's like you know, Fiasco's little play sets. Like when you're assembling a bunch of ingredients for people to play with, or you're kind of like, I think in some cases half playing the game and then like giving that half to the players and being like, you go from there. That is actually very fun. And I think it was really interesting to play in Cosmic Dark specifically, because those really have like a beginning and a middle and an end. And there's many things that like could happen, and all of it is like interpretive. But I think maybe this even came out in the editing as we were putting like comments back and forth, or maybe this was just me in my first draft going like, and then anything could happen. And, you know, and it's like, well, actually, no, like you do need to give some options. Like you need to, it was finding like a new balance between, I just say exactly what happens and I give you a few evocative phrases and off you go. It was an interesting line to walk for sure.
And when you say, you know, when you do give them options, or even when you write the scenario structure, I feel you're always coming at it with the idea of, look, this is just a draft. When this gets to the table, you know, it will. You should be playing around with this, and I think players delight in that as well. You know, so you say, you know, if you do this, this will happen, and if you do this, this will happen, and then players will come at you and go, well, we thought of a fourth option. And
Yes.
that's great. That's what it's there for.
Exactly. And I think it's nice to just know that, like, even if I told you this is exactly what must happen, like, I'm not there at the table, defy me. Like, you know, I'm not your dad.
Yeah.
And like, or I am your dad, all the better reason to defy me. And like, and I think also players delight when they have a sense that they're going off script. And so if you as the GM can very consciously like go, okay, hang on, this says this, but I want to pick up on something that you just said. Like, that thrills players. That pleases them to no end.
I love all of that. Can I just check quickly? I feel my microphone is doing funny dynamic things. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Okay, cool.
You
All right.
sound mellifluous.
Stop it. But yeah, okay,
That's
cool.
good.
So sometimes it decides I'm speaking too loud, and then it just goes down to 0 and nobody can hear me. So yeah.
I'm not rude.
It just decides I'm talking shit.
That's enough out of you. It's
Let's let Alex talk, Raw.
So
Yes,
Fade down.
your microphone is sharing the spotlight, and that's such a key, you know, GM skill.
Well done.
And that's one of the things that I enjoy in a good GM-less game is people's ability to just take that on and do that in a fluid way. Because maybe we should talk briefly about the thing that Graham is kickstarting, which is an edition of his new book. New edition of his book. Because I've read it, and I think I really, really love it just as like a collection of, here are things that I've figured out, either by reading stuff or either by playing stuff or either by talking to people who are, you know, having a good time. Like, there is a lot of missing information in between what is written in the rules of a good role-playing game and like the end result of a really good time. And you as the designer are always trying to give people enough information to get there, right? Like enough to quickly kind of scaffold them and, you know, whatever. But there's certain things that you just kind of learn by playing enough games with enough people, or by, you know, bringing in different things that you learn through, like, you know, people take a you know, creative writing class, or they take an improv class, or they, you know, learn facilitation and mediation, and then they're like, oh my god, okay, great, this is going in my game. And I think it's just a really nice, like, I don't know, pile of that stuff that, like, you know, it works because you know it works. Like when it hits the table and people are doing more reincorporation, or it hits the table and people are doing more asking each other good follow-up questions, or, you know, playing with status, like all the things you talk about, it just works. Like, try it, you will find your game is good. It's the
interesting, isn't it?
citation.
I mean, those aren't my ideas, right? Or they kind of are my ideas because I've applied them, but I mean, those are, they come from an improvisation guy called Keith Johnston, which is actually, so when you talk about improv classes and so on, in the States, I think that often means kind of a Chicago, is it Second City, that kind of background. And Keith Johnston is kind of a bit parallel to that, but goes in a slightly different direction. So it's, yeah. And I haven't applied this bit. But
Impro, right? And
yeah, that's the book. Yeah.
And even just figuring out when you've played a couple of really good games, and also like have played bad games. Like, surely all of us have been in role-playing games where we're like, oh, I can't wait for this to be over, or oh, that was a bad time, right? That also teaches you a lot. And I think that role-playing games in a way are a bit of an oral tradition. Again, like the rules are all in the book, but really you want to play with people who have played a bit before in order to have a really good time with whatever those rules are.
That's such a thing, isn't it? I mean, you know, when I think of games like, because I think this is almost like a missing piece in a lot of indie games, right? I mean, it's certainly why I wrote Play Unsafe, because I think in the early days, kind of 2006, there were all these indie games that were kind of, you do a scene, you do a scene, you do a scene, and we build on it bit by bit. So amazing games, you know, Contenders by Joe Prince, and Cold City, which there's a new edition out now, and it's an amazing game. But there was always this sort of missing piece that if we're all doing scenes, how do we actually bring all that together? Yeah, so that's why I won't Play Unsafe. But I also feel with, you know, like I played The Quiet Year recently, which is a beautiful game. So there's Avery Alder map building game, but there's a pack of cards and it's all you know, there's a lot of improvisation to it. But I've played that with my home group who didn't really get it and didn't know how to work together, and yeah, that was fascinating. Those skills of working together, they're so hard to instill, and we often don't explain them.
Yes, there's a lot of I guess like unknown knowns, right? Is the Zizek thing, like things that you know that you don't realize that you know when you're writing a game, right? That are, you know, blanks that there's between the lines, right? For you, it's very obvious. Or in many cases, like when you're writing a game, you're writing it for a group of people, right? And whether or not you know it, you know that they know how to like ask each other good follow-up questions or be a good audience to each other, or to pace themselves and time themselves or whatever. And it's fun to put words to some of those things, to say like, this is what I'm going to call the phenomenon where people just don't pre-schedule but decide to take a break at what feels like halfway through, like whatever that is called. I really love that. It's very good. And then you can put that in your role-playing game if you want, but also like you still want to have a good time even when you're playing a game that doesn't have those things in it. Like that, I think that's the advantage of a book like Play Unsafe, is because I read it as a designer and I'm like, these things should be, I want them to be explicit. I want these to be rules in my game, right? To do it like this. But ideally you could have a fun time kind of with whatever you want to play.
I would like to know the purpose of horror.
The purpose of it? Oh my God.
Yeah, you said that you were talking about it, and I'm like, that's too good of a tease. Like, you know, it's funny, like with romance, it's like, I feel like the purpose of romance is almost obvious. It's like the thrill of dating again, right? Like maybe you're with someone, maybe you're not. You know, my wife reads an awful lot of romance books. We sit on the couch and she reads romance and I read D&D stuff, and it's great. But like, I have thought about the purpose of horror. I have some thoughts, but I'd like to hear Graham Walmsley and Alex Roberts, for that matter, your thoughts on the purpose of horror.
I think it gets us out of our head, right? Yeah, I mean, why do we want to describe things that are unpleasant or disgusting? And there is that it kind of puts you in a weird headspace. Like, I mean, I have a bit of a problem with H.P. Lovecraft these days, but you know, just reading any horror author. I'm reading books by Andrew Michael Hurley at the moment. Just an amazing, weird author. And why do I read them? Because I'm not sure they make me feel good, but they make me feel weird, and I like weird. So yeah, just putting yourself in a different headspace.
Yes, and I think that the purpose of horror is the same purpose of any art, right? Which is to just be, to desperately try and continually fail to create an adequate representation of what it's like to be a person on Earth. Like, and this is not me. Like I'm riffing on like Werner Herzog talks about adequate images, right? He's just like, I want to make a film that gets at some adequate representation of what it's like to just live, like to just the human condition. And so you can take a picture of anywhere and be like, this exists, this is real, this is an accurate photograph, but is it adequate? Like, does it actually feel like being there, or does it feel like having this experience? And I think with horror, like, so much of it is like supernatural, or so much of it is in some way far beyond what people experience, right? Even if it's something that is not supernatural, you know, you're probably not going to get chased around with a chainsaw or whatever. But it's like, it needs to convey or to represent what it feels like to be hunted, or what it feels like to feel like you're being hunted, or what it feels like to feel like your body has utterly betrayed you, or to what it feels like to really actually immerse yourself in the fact that no matter what I do or what anyone does, I will suffer and die, and so will everyone I love. Like, you could just say that, I just say that out loud, but I think a really great horror, right, is the genre that lets you represent that in a way that other people can like connect to and be like, oh yeah, it does. Oh yeah, it really is like that, huh? Yeah.
I think one thing I always try to do, and I think you do as well, it is, I mean, it's what you were saying earlier, I think, about sort of bringing that humanness into it. Because I think we often fail to do that in role-playing games. We sort of play these caricature creatures, or these caricature people. But what I love to do is just design something that at some point people go, "Oh, I felt something."
Yes.
You know?
Yes, exactly. And I think this is also the purpose of romance, right? Is to get at a feeling. And so even if the characters in this romance are in, the Fey court of whatever, or they're, in an imagined historical past, those characters need to give you this feeling that like, that's what it's like when you have this indescribable feeling of just seeing someone and knowing that you need to be with them, you need to be connected with them, or the indescribable pain of someone that you care about that much that you can't be with, you can't touch, you can't look at. And romance novels, because of course, now that I have made Starcross, then I got into romance and started reading a ton of it.
Oh yeah.
Right? They're often full of definitely it's a gratification genre, right? Like it's to make you feel a certain way. Just like horror, right, is to make you feel weird, like it pushing buttons. But specifically, in my experience, romance is often filled with, and this is like Harlequin romance that you find in a little free library, or that is like a dime a dozen. They're filled with what we therapists call reparative relational experiences. And so what that means is just that you have an experience that is kind of like a bad experience, and then actually it turns out good, that you have had in the past. And so in a ton of these books, there's always something where it's like, and then he saw her naked body and she was so horrified because it's covered in like scars, but he was like, oh my gosh, I love it, you're beautiful. Or one person shows the other person the full extent of how intensely they experience things, and the other person's like, that's not too much at all, I think that's great actually. Like there's often storylines where like some unrelated to the two main characters, like an abuser gets his comeuppance, or like a kid gets out of a bad situation. Like they're really, and again, like, what does it mean that I'm reading this? Like, I don't know, but so humans make art for a reason, and it gets in you, and it's like, oh, that'd be so nice, or oh, that's possible, or right, like something happens.
No, so I love romance novels, and one thing I feel quite a lot is that they're not soft, right? They're not, there's a formula to them, but they are dealing with some human shit. You know, I love Jenny Colgan's novels, which a lot of them are, they're kind of, there's that whole genre where you inherit a shop and go and run it and then fall in love, which I love.
That's great.
Yeah. But if you take a book like Little Beach Street Bakery, which I'm not expecting anyone to know, I just love that book. She deals with people dying at sea and extramarital affairs in that, and you're sort of reading this and you're going, oh, this is and people losing their jobs and splitting up with ex-boyfriends, and ex-boyfriends who seem quite nice, but actually you're not really feeling stuff for them, and that's pretty complex, isn't it? So I think romance novels have so much in them.
Do we answer your question, Ben? Do you now understand the true meaning and the true purpose of horror?
Yeah, I think we've nailed that, haven't we?
I think we've completely resolved the question.
I was thinking to myself that horror is the no bullcrap genre that is gonna tell you the truth. The other genres will lie to you and make you feel better about yourselves, but horror tells you the truth. And then you said that horror is the one where you and everyone you love is going to die and there's nothing you can do about it. And I was like, oh yeah, that's the truth. That is the truth that horror is there to say. So it was fascinating to me listening to that like to hear what I was thinking better said than I was thinking it.
But then I think one thing, because that's true, right? So there is the thing that horror is the thing that lets you explore this thing which is true, but we don't talk about. But the other thing I was thinking about is that horror, especially when I like it best, is surreal. And so and I'm trying to, I have such deep feelings about surrealism. I love it. But it is the one that sort of lets you disappear into your mind and make these connections which don't make sense, and they're dreamlike and they're strange. But there's something very inexplicably wonderful about doing that.
Yes, yeah. And the sort of the unreal, and I'm realizing so much of what we're saying is true of romance and horror, that by making something unreal and impossible, whether it's impossible because it's just fantasy genre, you're in love with a angel man, you know, or whatever, or whether it's impossible because it's just like, well, it never really works out that well, or like, oh my gosh, it's just such a perfect partner exists in the world, or whatever. By making something unreal or deliberately surreal or deliberately could not happen in real life, which a lot of, I mean, romance and particularly I think erotica exists because it's like, I want something that can't exist in real life. And I specifically want to imagine that. And so horror is the same way, where because like by expanding your imagination and like by going into this world of like things that could not exist, I think that's actually in many ways one of the best places from which to talk about the real shit. Like, right? Like I actually don't want to just walk people through step by step every single thing that happened to me after a car accident. Like, ugh. But if we are in space and if something else is happening and if there's a force beyond humanity and sci-fi inventions and we're on a spaceship, then maybe I can actually get in there and be like, what if you could see a part of your body that you're not supposed to be able to see? Right now I can do that because now it's right. It's like a way in, and the obfuscation, right? Like obfuscating is a way to tell the truth, right? By like hiding part of it or by right.
So this was Jason Morningstar taught me this trick, which is essentially, I mean, just to oversimplify a lot, right? You know, if you've got a boring story, you can put a sci-fi gloss, as he calls it, on, and it becomes interesting. So he did that with Durant's, which is his game, I think, about Australian penal colonies, which he then put in space, and so it, you know, became interesting. But you're totally right. So I mean, you know, like in Cosmic Dark, in Cosmic Dark is a story about working for a really shit company.
Yes.
Which is horrible, you know, and nobody wants to sit down and play that. But then you put it in space, and suddenly it's actually quite interesting. So
yeah. And again, does anyone want to just sit down and be like, this is what it's like to work for a massive corporation that doesn't care about you, and to just go out there and extract? Like, probably not. But once we're working for Extractsa and we're eating space rations and we're extracting the resources on an asteroid, suddenly I can get in there, right? And suddenly I can get in there as the author and like offer some things that maybe would be too threatening if they were just literally the case. And also I, as the player, then get to put a little gloss on things or share things that, again, because I can be like, treat it as theoretical or treat it as not real, as a way of talking about what's real, which I actually, by the way, think people are doing constantly in role-playing games in general, that people are drawing on their own lives and they're telling you about their life without having to just tell you about their life. And consciously and subconsciously, probably intentionally and unintentionally, I should say. I think that's like a feature of role-playing in games in general. So I wonder what the connection is there.
Either of you familiar with Dr. Joseph Laycock?
This sounds so familiar. I don't know.
I'm not.
So he does a lot of I think he's a professor of religion at the University of Texas. He's done a lot on the Satanic Temple. He is there's a YouTuber named Genetically Modified Skeptic who he's clearly friends with, and he's frequently on that YouTube channel. But anyway, he is relevant to our conversation because he wrote a book called Dangerous Games about the Satanic Panic, and in it, he puts forth the idea that a role-playing game creates a space outside of your mind, reality, something like that, from which you can look back on the world and examine it safely, which was so much of just reminded me of what you guys were talking about with the genre work. And I like saying that because it's just such a brilliant way of putting what the work of a role-playing game is, that I like to frequently repeat it. So I had the chance to do that now. So listeners, take a shot.
I really love that. I really love the the idea of like a little bit of distance or a little bit of a container. This is another like word that therapists love, is like a container can be a place or like a person or an activity or a song or a practice or whatever that allows you to do something that feels really emotionally fraught in a, or like emotionally risky in a way that you kind of will like know will begin and end, or that you know will have limited consequences. And so whether that's watching a movie about something and then you get to like have all these watching The Fly, right? You get to have all these agonizing experiences and also like laugh, right? It's very important that that movie's funny. You can laugh at the sort of fundamental frailty of the human body, and the absurdity of trying to exist in it. And then, and you can do that in a way because like, then it's over. The movie is over now, and you know it's not real, and it's over there, and you can walk away, and you know that at about the 2-hour mark, you're done. And so this puts such an interesting lens on role-playing games as a place where we go, and for the duration of this session, I'm going to look at the world in a way, or I'm going to act in a way, or I'm going to examine my own internal life in a way that would be much too frightening to just do in an open-ended, okay, I'll just start doing it way. That it's like, it's held here, it's contained here, and I leave it here when I'm done.
Well, since we're winding down, let me ask, what is a role-playing game work not by either of you that you would point the audience towards?
Oh, you want to wind down with that question, do you? This is going to kick shit off. Oh, wow, I can't just do one of those.
I'll go first. Yeah. And you, Graham, you don't even have to listen to what I'm saying. You can just think it's great. I recently played a game of Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast by J Dragon. And I had played it a couple of times and been like, oh, this is nice, this is fun. But I had clearly what is like the peak experience with this game. For people who don't know, it's kind of like a, I don't know, cute Saturday morning cartoon, make your own thing. I mean, if you like Steven Universe or Adventure Time or something like that, that is more recent that the kids know, it's like this recurring cast of characters, and they have a little premise that they live in together, and you can just play out one of their episodes, right? One of their adventures. And there's a bunch of really cool stuff mechanically around like there's no character monogamy. It's just like this week I'm playing Amelie, the robot maid. The next week, right, someone else will be there playing that character, or I'll be back, but now I'm playing Percival, the knight who was turned into a frog. And so you have like different cast of characters. Some of them are present, and who plays them changes each time. And it's really important because I really sat down to this game and was like, I almost didn't come to RPG night tonight. I'm really tired, a really bad day. I was really feeling just like down, but I wanted to show up and I wanted this game to fill. So I'm like, okay, here I am. What do you got? And this character was handed to me. Muckleby. Muckleby was the character. And it's described as like a blob of grime with she, her pronouns. And the picture is just this little blob of slime with like a little bow that's kind of sliding off the side. And I was like, that's so me right now.
You're like, that's me.
That's so me. I can do that. I can be this guy. And it uses the belonging outside belonging system, like Dream Askew, right, which is the Avery Alder joint. And so it has this very simple thing of like, you do these things to get tokens, and when you have tokens, you can spend them on doing these things, right? Just 2 lists of things. And all of my lists of things to get tokens were like feel rejected, accidentally absorb something, lose track of your own face in your body. And so I really just got to be like, at the table, and it was enjoyed and it was appreciated, and it accrued me tokens, which I could then spend on things like, envelop everyone in your enthusiasm, or be solid for a moment, or like pull something useful or shiny out of the depths of your goopy body. And it just really, really actually made the game sing for me in a really beautiful way. And I think that just really fits into what we're talking about, how you're bringing yourself and you're bringing your own life, and in many ways you're looking at yourself in your own life in a role-playing game. But what is the amount of covering? What is the amount of veiling or masking or magic that you have to do to those ingredients in order to like share them in a way that feels really good. And it did feel good. I felt much more energetic after playing. So that's my recommendation this time around.
I just think so. So firstly, I really feel I should be sort of pimping some recent games. Yes, everyone should go and play Tanya Floker's stuff, and everyone should go and play Ashes Ridge and stuff like that. What's
Could you
in
say
my
those
head?
two names again?
Yeah, Tanya Floker is an amazing British, I think Scottish designer. So we played, I think, Solstice, which was her game, which is excellent. And then Ashes Ridge is just a game that sort of drew me in with it's just the most beautiful book. It's just the most incredible thing, and I'm very jealous of it. What I was going to say though is I think there are so many games which I'm afraid are being lost at the moment.
Yeah.
So I mean, again, games from the sort of mid 2000s, but Polaris, for example, is a groundbreaking game, and we don't talk about it now, but it's a game where it's entirely words, and instead of conflicts, you don't really roll dice, you're sort of exchanging words. It's incredible. We were talking about Avery Alder. Ribbon Drive is the most astonishing game. So we played that recently. So this is a game about people on a road trip, and reliably one of the most beautiful bonding games. Steal Away Jordan is a game about slaves in the Deep South, and which most people really don't want to touch. But if you talk to the author, which is Julia Ellingboe, will say, people should play this. They should have fun with it, and it is. It's actually, and it sounds strange to say, but it's an incredibly fun game. And so I just think there's this sort of rich patch of games which I really don't want to be forgotten, because I thought there was so much cleverness.
Yeah.
I mean, it certainly feels like the vein of role-playing games is still a rich one, and we're not near the bottom of it.
Yeah. And I think Graham's right about, losing the tail of it, not just because things don't get talked about or kind of forgotten, but also because like literally you just can't get a copy of games that were hugely influential on me. Like good luck getting a copy of Kagamatsu. And like theoretically you can get, I've played Steal Away Jordan. I love it. I also love Julia Bond Ellingboe's game, Dream of the Fisherman's Wife.
Oh yeah.
Which is which just look it up. It's so good, but like I think you can get a copy if you look hard enough, probably just a PDF, but like I don't actually know. Like there's like the cultural memory, and then there's also just like, can this thing be had? And there's probably so many games that were because I didn't really rock up to indie gaming till like maybe 2010. So there's probably games that were influential on me that I can't even remember the names of, or that, I mean, Graham, you and I know, like, there are probably so many games that were a huge impact on us that never got published. Like that you just, played once, designers messing with it, and then you're like, oh yeah, right?
I mean, like one of the huge ones for me, and there's this whole conversation I wanted to have with you about how you came to indie gaming a bit later. And anyway, so Acts of Evil, which is a Paul Sager game, which never got published. It's somewhere on my shelf. But I read through it, and it's so ambitious. It's one of the games where it actually has a way that everyone can kind of prepare. I can't remember. I haven't read this for about 10 years. But you, as your character, you have your own kind of area, and you're encouraged to do prep before the game and then bring that. And I loved that. It was something about the idea of distributed prep. Actually, the idea that we are doing prep, but we're sort of each preparing our own areas and coming to the table with it. Can
I read the RPG Geek description of that,
please?
Acts of Evil, yeah,
Acts of Evil. So it's an Ashcan edition from 2007, and it says, players are occultists who would grasp reality and bend it to a mythology of their own chthonic godhood. To succeed means narrating the individual destructions of the other players' occultist characters. And I'm like, wow, I would play that. That's a game with a G.
This is so much too, I think, about like play them while you got them. Like I would love for people to play these older games, especially if they seem kind of like crunchy or weird, or they're like hard to understand because they're just from a different time than the games that you played. Like even Breaking the Ice is an amazing game. Go find it, go play it. And like, I don't know, maybe it won't conform to the information you expect to receive in a game. It might be old enough to have reached that mark. But also that tells me so much, like play the games that people are playtesting right now, because not all of them might end up existing. Like just, or put your draft on the table and get people to play it. Because even if you never publish it, it could still, be an influence on someone, or be a good experience, or, mean something to somebody.
The reason I'm standing up is because every time we talk about a game, I'm trying to find some on my bookshelf here, and I've failed every time. I do have a copy of Axe the Eel, and I have, but the one I found was that this is something called A Question for Mama, which in the kind of 2015, something like that, there was an extraordinarily creative period in London where around a group called London Indie RPG, and this guy Stuart Chaplin would kind of make these games. He'd have a different game every month, and he'd turn up with them. And you would love this, Alex. I mean, they're these beautiful. I think this is about mermaids, basically. These beautiful storytelling games. And so I almost don't know if I want to, remember games like this, or if I just want to say, look, these things are transient. Go and play them when they exist, and they won't exist forever. And let's just enjoy them while they last.
Yeah.
Well, since it's about that time, Graham, tell us how people can support your Kickstarter.
You can support my Kickstarter by going to my Kickstarter and giving me money. So I think by the time this comes out, the Kickstarter will be just coming to the end. So yes, it's Kickstarter for Play Unsafe. You can probably find it by Googling it. It's a beautiful book, and do go and buy a copy.
And Alex, what would you direct people to? Starcrossed?
Go look up Starcrossed. For the Queen is currently out of stock in the United States, but you can click a little button on the Darrington Press or the Critical Role web shop that says notify me when available. But if you live in Canada or the UK, maybe Australia, I don't know, it actually is still in stock. So go look for that. But also I'm at helloalexroberts.card, CARRD.co. And I'm on Patreon as well. So if you want to know more about my games, see what I'm working on right now, see the drafts that I created that maybe perhaps never published, we'll see. That's the place to go do that.
Well, this has been amazing. Graham, thank you for staying up for this. Alex, thank you for finding time in the middle of your workday. This has been great.
Thank you so much for having us. This is a delight. And thank you, Graham, for suggesting me. I had a good time.
Oh my God, there's no one I would have loved to talk to more. So thank you.